Get your stinking rat out. It's late night large.
Welcome to a late night large with more edge than a triskaidekahedron. Unlucky for some is me, Aaron Bliss, and unlucky for all is Mike Large.
Lovely instruction.
How we doing, Mike?
Yeah, getting by. Here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Still in our third lockdown.
Blood smeared on the walls. Cabin fever getting to you.
Yeah. So part of the course, isn't it now?
Yeah, that's true.
Same old. We all know what to expect, and
work, eat, sleep, repeat. Work, eat, sleep, repeat.
Yeah. How about you? Right?
Oh, not too bad. Yeah, I have to admit, I know by the time this goes out, this might not be relevant anymore, but it was a rare thing of joy to see some snow. That was nice.
Was it?
Was it?
Was it though?
Was it though? I'm afraid it was, Mike. I've always loved snow, whether it's the childhood connotations. I think snow's great at night as well, when you go on night walks in the snow. Mainly because it's like it kind of sets everything up as there's this weird luminescence that happens when there's a coating of snow over everything at night, because the moonlight shines off it, kind of makes everything glow. But no, I don't think there's nothing can compare to that crunch of fresh snow underfoot.
Yeah, I mean, like most things. So go on. What were you saying?
Obviously, old people slipping over as well, but that's part of the course.
Yeah, that's the big draw. No, I think unfortunately, like most things, my job has turned me off it. It just made me hate everything, really, including snow. So, yeah, it just becomes an inconvenience.
I guess so. I guess you can't.
I think the thing is, yeah, it's lovely to live in. Be lovely to live inside the little fairy tale that you seem to live in your head. But snow is actually just an inconvenience when you're an adult. Like, I know at the minute, we can't really go anywhere or do anything anyway. So, effective travel won't affect most people. But for those of us that still need, everything running smoothly in that respect, it's just an inconvenience. As pretty as it is to look at. So I just thought that one ray of sunshine that everyone might have, I'd put a dampener on.
Okay.
Don't want anyone getting too happy, do we?
No. And I know you can't see this, Mike, but I'm actually playing a really, really tiny violin right now.
If you could, yeah, no, I appreciate that.
In your honour.
That's very kind.
May I just remark though, Mike? There's always the opportunity to sling snowballs at people that are puffed up or, pissed you off at work. So obviously,
right outside against the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Get outside against the wall.
Squad.
Yeah. Right, you're charged being a pain in my ass.
I sent you to kiss my ass.
Punishment: 5 snowballs to the face.
And 1 to the groin.
Right. Yeah. Do you know what? You couldn't do that anymore, could you? I consider that. I consider bringing that in.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
I get fired now for like abusing people or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
people.
This is the
world we live in.
Yeah, too politically correct. I remember the days when you could roll up a massive rock in a snowball and just smash a kid right in the back of the head with it. It dusted themselves up, went to the hospital to get their head fixed. Nobody said anything about it. Now you're potentially up on child assault charges and you lose your job and.
Oh, it's ridiculous. You can't even talk about doing it anymore.
I know, right? Fucking. Oh, it's. I tell you what, we need to go back. You know, we need to go back to those times. You know, less nanny state kind of shit.
If I
So
could turn back time.
so Mike, other than you enjoying yourself and eating the yellow snow, have you been up to much else?
Work, eating yellow snow, coming home and wanking into a sock. I mean, I don't know what else there is. I don't know.
That good.
Yeah. What else? What else is there really?
Well,
Not much else to do. I mean, have you done anything? What have you been keeping yourself busy with?
I've tried to start writing again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, mainly. I mean, other things, you know, we've discussed the online degree stuff that we're trying to focus on. But no, I'm trying to write like properly, like regularly write, you know, short stories and what have you. Because if you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it? And I often find myself thinking, I really fancy reading like a certain type of fiction, and it's really difficult to find exactly the type of fiction you want to read. And you think, well, if you can't find it, then write it yourself. So that's how the logic goes anyway. But yeah, no, works. Same old, isn't it? It's
Vain, but you're finding a way to keep your creative juices flowing. So that's
you've got to. I'd advise anyone to do the same thing. Just what, no, you know, you might not like writing, you might not like knitting, you might not like, I don't know what else you might want to do, carpet laying or, but find,
talk.
yeah, but yeah, no, it's important to give yourself a creative outlet. And you know, the most important thing that I read relatively recently, Mike, you know, they have those silly profound motivational quotes, but one of them actually made sense to me, which is you don't have to do something to be good at it and to show it off to people. Just do something because you literally enjoy doing it in the moment. So if you want to, if you want to try painting a picture and it turns out so shit you don't want anyone to look at it, but you enjoy doing it, that's brilliant. Keep doing it. You don't have to produce something that other people have to see or you can sell or show off to people. Just whatever engages your brain and makes you feel good in the process of doing it, that's a good thing. And you should seize it with both hands in these times when we're not legally allowed to do much.
Yeah. Embrace and treasure the little things. Anything that puts a little smile on your face. You know, if you're painting a picture and it looks like, you know, the 3-year-old next door did it, well, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't show anyone, for God's sake, but don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Do it again.
And
send it to Aaron and stick it on his fridge. It's fun.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. If you want to send me your terrible pictures, yeah, I'll start pinning them up behind me, and then before you know it, we'll have a whole wall of terrible art.
If you want to send me your naked pictures, I'll pin them up in my bedroom. So
I knew that was coming, and you know I'll accept those too. So
I mean, send them over here. To be fair.
All right. So in the world of COVID this week, Mike, because that's normally what we deliberate on. So because that's why we're in the situation we're in.
Lockdown,
so how are we looking? How are we looking this week? Do you think in the COVID situation?
It's not looking good, is it?
Not really. It didn't take long, did it? Because I saw this week for the first time, I think, there's a bunch of backbenchers starting talking about, so what's the plan for reopening schools and stuff like this? Just like, dude, like, we're not Donald Trump. Look at the fucking hospital statistics. Like, we're nowhere near, unfortunately, we're nowhere near even considering getting out of it to the extent we open schools again. In fact, there's question marks about whether they'll be open after Easter at the moment. So
Well, it's interesting you say that.
Hmm.
Because did I see somewhere today, Bojo talk about a relaxing of some lockdown rules from the middle of Feb?
I did
Did I
see
see
that. Yeah, no, you're right. I saw that. I think it was in today's Guardian. I saw it, and I remember rolling my eyes as soon as I read that, because I have to admit, what I thought after Christmas, I thought, they'll still bollocks everything up, because we discussed this before. The cabinet has not been assembled on the basis of talent. It's the loyalty to Brexit and to Boris Johnson. So, we know that they're not going to be competent. But what I did think would happen was Johnson would grow up a little bit with the rhetoric, the whole everything's going to be great. We're going to look at how we're going to start opening everything up again, and optimistic, jolly hockey sticks. And I thought literally he would at least grow up a little bit and realize how serious the situation is, and be like, I'm not even going to consider that, talking about that, until like the end of February. So to read that today, I was just like, is he just going to repeat the same old shit? Because if you can show me one person in the country who understands medicine and what's happened in the NHS, who honestly thinks that we should even begin looking at unlocking down to any extent in like a couple of weeks, I mean, they can't have a brain in their head. They've got COVID mental sickness, because there doesn't seem to be any basis for him considering. I mean, we discussed it, didn't we, last week? If you judge like the incredible infection rates and the death rates that were still appallingly high last week, you look at those, and the question mark was, can we lock down more? Do you know what I mean? Because we said that only 16% of the entire workforce was on furlough, which indicates that there's a lot of non-essential jobs that are forcing their workers to go in and probably spread the virus. So to have him a couple of days after that be like, oh, I'm pondering whether to think about starting to unlock things. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I just think I'd love to. I was going to say then, I'd be careful. I was going to say I'd love to be inside his head, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I mean that. I mean, mine's a pretty fucking scary place, but I don't think I can cope with being in there. I do wonder on what basis he's made these comments, as in who has said what to him for him to come out with that. Like what advisor or what minister or who has given him this idea or presented him with these figures or stats or however him coming out with that has culminated, however that happened.
Yeah.
Like, what little bits did go into that? Who has said what? Because you're right. I'm no expert, the same as you're not, but it doesn't look like things are really getting better. So what was the basis upon those things were kind of said? I don't get it.
You do. It's a real. I mean, the only thing I can think of, because remember what we normally do is apply Occam's razor, don't we? Cut away the bullshit. What's the most likely explanation?
That's what I get.
I would suggest that the most likely explanation, just off the top of my head, would be, and I know this sounds really stupid and infantile, but all I can think of is his backbenchers have started grumbling again. Oh, when are we going to get kids back to schools and get people back to work? And he's just thought, I'll make a comment that I'm considering easing lockdown restrictions, and that'll be enough to shut them up for another week.
Do you know what? if that is the case, then actually fair play. No,
Yeah,
no,
no, I think the same thing. If he's literally just lying, if he's literally bullshitting them, just to say, just sit down. We're definitely going to look at this. Look at this. Look at this in a couple of weeks. We'll think about unlocking some stuff, because then that gives him the leeway in a couple of weeks to say, chaps, look at these figures. I'm afraid we can't consider unlocking anymore. So.
yeah,
You know,
appreciate your viewpoint. Took it on board. We've had a look, but as you can see, we just can't. I'm not suggesting that it's always good kind of leadership or management or whatever you want to call it to just bullshit. But do you know what? Actually, sometimes you have to. And that is a good example. That's a good example, because if that is what he's done, he's gone, do you know what? I do not need your shit right now. Shut the fuck up. Tell you what, let's tell him we're looking at it. Tell him we're looking at it. I'll look into that. I do it all the time. Mike, nah, I'll look into it.
Yeah, I've taken your points on board. Yeah.
No, I understand what you're saying, and you make a good point. So let me look into that.
And we'll talk again. A couple of weeks time. We're gonna look at that, and we'll see what we can do.
Usually, what that means is you're too stupid for me to explain this to you. So just go away, and maybe that's.
And we call it basic bullshittery, and fortunately, that's one thing that Johnson is absolutely exceptional at. So, he is, whatever else we say about him, he is absolutely exceptional bullshit, and he loves kicking the can down the road as well, which Theresa May did as well. But
to be fair, though, it does. I think that's a good point that you've made there. That gives him. That's the perfect kind of excuse for doing the whole kicking the can down the road routine that he loves so much. But actually, I think that people forget he has got a global pandemic to deal with. There are other things going on in the world as well. Lots of Brexit talks, like negotiations, things he's had to deal with recently. Lots of everything else hasn't gone away. He does still have to do the normal stuff as well. He still does have to deal with his backbenchers and the opposition and anyone else, and he's still got to do all that stuff. So actually, if he's in this instance, if what he's done is buy himself some time by saying, do you know what? Effectively saying, I don't need your shit, shut the fuck up. All right, we'll look at it. But by just giving them a little bit what they need, so he can carry on doing the right thing, which at the moment, in a lot of ways, he is in that respect, then, fair play. And I can't say I would do the same thing. Yeah,
it's ironic, isn't it, that we often castigate Johnson for bullshitting and lying and conning people. But no, I find it hard to disagree with your point. I would probably do the same in his situation, because the people that he's dealing with are effectively zealots. Because, if those people were in charge, if it were up to them, we'd probably have close to 1 million deaths, because there'd be no restrictions at all. They'd make a half-hearted attempt at shielding vulnerable people, which would basically be stay at home with no financial support. And basically, it would be a bloodbath. There'd probably be 1 million dead, and they'd be banging on about how great the economy was looking. So the fact that, what I mean is, dealing with those people, they're bad faith actors. So you can't say to them like adults, guys, Hancock, get the statistics. This hospital 98% capacity. This hospital 96% capacity. This hospital has cancelled all urgent operations. Can you see how serious this is? Because they don't react to it. So sometimes it's best to say, no, you've got a good point, guys. mid-February, we're going to look at it, and I will get back to you on what we're able to loosen up by then.
Worth noting that we're saying this now on the assumption that that's what he's doing.
Yes, we're speculating because, like you say, it's terrifying to think actually living inside Boris Johnson's head. So this is the best we can do with the information that's to hand.
I guess what we'll do is see how that unfolds over the coming weeks and see what he does when he gets to the middle of January.
Yes. If we do get to that stage and in fact Johnson does something really stupid like open schools back up, or says, oh, everyone's free to go back to work except they wear masks, then yeah, we'll revisit it and say, oh, he didn't have a plan, he wasn't being tactical, he was just being a fucking idiot. So we will come back to that. The interesting thing, Mike, is this comment from him about looking at loosening stuff in a couple of weeks comes no more than a couple of days, I think it was the weekend just gone, where he announced that one of the new variants, because apparently there are new variants all the time, I guess science does tell us that there are new variants all the time, but there was the new variant that was 80% or 70% more transmissible. And he then announced, weirdly, to little fanfare, I didn't see much written about it other than like the odd headline in The Guardian. He made a statement that there was a new strain that could be, or he believed to be, about 30% more fatal. So more deadly. Now, if anyone was worried about it being caught easier, but they were under the impression, oh, that's only weak or elderly people that's going to be a threat to. This sounded pretty worrying. Again, I know we're potentially flogging a dead horse, but it's worth saying again. I don't know whether it's exactly the same when this goes out, but as of last week, we had the worst death toll per capita in the whole of the world, excess deaths in terms of the pandemic. And yet we're now told that the new strain could be even deadlier. Like, that's really, really bad news. I don't know what you thought of that, Mike. Did you hear much about
that? Yeah, no, not masses, other than like kind of what you said. But I think it's difficult because sometimes, well, not sometimes, they will have lost credibility now. From this is the bad side of the bullshit, isn't it?
Yeah.
When people figure you out, you lose credibility. When you exaggerate, fabricate, just lie about whatever, you lose credibility, don't you? So the concern is that actually, there's a genuine warning, if you like, come out of that, and that actually, boy cried wolf, isn't it? People might not listen. So yeah, but he also said X, Y, Z, and that was all bullshit. So, personally, I think even if you are of that opinion, and you do take everything he says with a pinch of salt, and I couldn't necessarily blame you for it, you still need to err on the side of caution, don't you? When talking about things like this, it's not like,
I have to admit, I didn't see an awful lot from the medical advisors on this. That's why I thought it was a bit bizarre. I'm sure it is true, because if it's a headline in a newspaper and he was telling porkies, surely the medical advisors would have corrected it and said, no, he's misunderstood that. So,
and they just come out and say that?
They've contradicted ministers before. I mean, yeah, okay, he's the Prime Minister, but they've contradicted Matt Hancock before. I remember they literally, huh?
Yeah, but he's a fucking ball bag.
Ball bag. Yeah, I mean, we've discussed how much of a weapon that Matt Hancock is, but what
who do you prefer, Bojo or Hancock?
Who do I prefer? Oh God! In terms of what? Running a piss up in a brewery, or
Uh,
I would,
yeah, generally.
I would, I would probably ever so slightly favour Hancock, only because I think Hancock lies, but he gives himself away so easily because he's so slimy and like, we've said it before, like his spitting image character, like clutching his teddy, and he's just so phony that you see straight through him. Whereas with Johnson, he's got that cunning behind his eyes where even when he doesn't need to, he'll lie to your face if he thinks it's somehow in his advantage. And there'll be that one time he tells the truth and he seems to be a friend of yours, and he'll probably win you over because he's like putting his arm around his shoulder and he's being really funny and charming, and he'll catch you out. You'll probably gain or not so much trust, but you'll believe one or two things he says, and then he'll leave you holding the bag, and you'll be like, fuck. I don't think Hancock's capable of that. Like, his lying is so pathetic. Do you know what I mean? He's such a pathetic specimen. But yeah, no, because he got contradicted though, specifically, wasn't it, when he said, he went on record to say that it was amazing that Britain was the first country to get the vaccine approved by the regulator, and he basically implied it was because of Brexit that we were allowed to do it. And then he immediately got contradicted and said, no, it's because we were still in the EU procurement scheme, you plank. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought you might have forgotten that.
What?
He is just, I don't know. The thing, what I wonder about Matt Hancock as well is he's like a good character study in what it looks like for someone to give away all their dignity and credibility in service of one particular person. Because Mike, you're not naive. I'm sure you agree with me that the odds that Johnson is still going to be prime minister by the end of the year is about 1,000 to 1, if not higher odds than that. I would be very surprised if Johnson was still prime minister at the end of this year. So when you look at that, will Matt Hancock hitching himself so clearly to him cost him in the long run? Because we know that Hancock did this because he was desperate to still be health minister. And presumably that was because he later wanted to be in the shake-up if there was another leadership election. But the way I look at it is, how can anyone take Matt Hancock seriously? It's all very well like saying, I served in the health ministry for this amount of time, I deserve to have a shot. But the public are going to look at him surely and go, yeah, I remember you pretending to cry. I remember you lying about the vaccine being approved. I remember you like doing those cringy faces when you didn't like a question. I just don't. I think it's going to backfire. What his tactic has clearly been. I don't know what you.
I think Ojo's inevitable downfall and when he goes, I think Hancock's probably got to go with him, hasn't he? I don't think that he definitely doesn't have enough credibility to, regardless of what he thinks or try to do, to put himself in any sort of leadership race. So given that someone else then will take that position, if it was you, regardless of where you sit now or who you are now or what you do now, if you went for the job, got the job, you surely the first thing you would want to do is distance yourself from people like Matt Hancock. Just to even if you actually do have some sort of allegiance to them, or you do believe, you're in a similar mold, or it's only going to do yourself good. You would distance yourself, wouldn't you?
I think you would, yeah. I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if most of the cabinet kept their jobs, to be honest, because if you look at, I mean, Gavin Williamson being the obvious is like almost Chris Grayling level of incompetence as education secretary. You know, most parents, what was it, 92% of teachers think he should resign. Most parents would probably want him to be out of that job immediately. Priti Patel has done enough to lose 3 cabinet positions. You're not going to keep like an intellectual lightweight like Dominic Raab as foreign secretary, and like you say, who wants to have Matt Hancock around? He's got no credibility anymore. So I can hardly see any of the major cabinet ministers retaining their positions once Johnson's gone.
No, I
It'd
guess
be like flushing the toilet, won't it? It'd be like a big flush of the toilet.
You would want to do that, given if it was me, yeah, fucking clean slate.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this again, and maybe I'll appoint person X to here, Y to here, Z to, and perhaps they'll fuck up in their own ways and lose credibility. But at least you're starting from neutral. Now that doesn't, whoever then takes these offices will have some sort of background, so you may not be starting completely from neutral, but at least in that role, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I would, but then I suppose it depends who ends up filling the top spot, and because they may well have allegiances or certain backs that they need to scratch for whatever reason as a result of them getting it in the first place, and there's the politics involved, so
it's a very good point. I mean, that's the big problem, isn't it? I mean, it's always been the same, that there's maneuvering and like favorability, and this person did me this favor, or they supported me on this policy or whatever, to give people a leg up. But in the past, there was always the expectation that I'm doing you a favor, giving you this big position as a Minister of State. Show me you know how big this is by doing a good job. And if they didn't do a good job, you give them a year or whatever. If they fucked up royally, like Williamson did, or like Hancock's done, or like Patel's done, no problem. Reshuffle, out you go. I gave you a chance. I paid back my allegiance to you, and you weren't up to the job. It's only really, honestly, I don't even think May's government was as bad as this. Where
you do that too much, like if you want to keep your job,
that's a good point.
You need these people in your corner, so you can't do that too much. So you have to be there's a balance. You have to be really cunning.
It's a very good point. What I meant was, if you go into how it is now, so you replace Johnson, okay, you might be friendly with 1 or 2 of the people who are already in cabinet, but to me, you do a big flush immediately. Flush the toilet, out go Hancock, Raab, Patel, Williamson, George Eustace. Get rid of them. Maybe reshuffle some of them. So I don't know, maybe put Dominic Raab in a department that's not that important and he can't do too much damage. But the rest of them have proved completely incompetent, promoted well above their ability. So get rid of those, and then you fill the other positions with people who might have helped you, whatever. And like you say, you don't rip them all out of their positions at once. You just reshuffle 1 or 2 at a time. But you say to them, it's based on performance. Show me you're competent. Show me you can handle this brief. I think it's because we've got so inured to the fact that Johnson does government. It's governed by cronyism and back scratching.
Yeah.
So, there was a time when even, no matter how greedy or obviously corrupt they were, the Tories did really respect ministers' competence. They wanted them to be competent in their position. And it's gone out the window with Johnson, but, like we say, part of that mentality might be because Johnson desperately doesn't want to be outshined by anyone. So he's actually quite happy that there's a load of incompetence in his cabinet.
It's one way of looking at it, yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. So, okay. So I was also going to mention one of the few highlights during this lockdown period has again been Piers Morgan regularly tearing cabinet ministers new assholes, and the
Not
one.
not not Liverpool losing then.
I don't want to upset any Liverpool supporting fans that might tune in,
Okay.
so I'm not going to alienate some of our fan base, Mike.
No, do it. Go on, do it.
No comment. So Therese Coffey was the latest victim of Piers Morgan. I don't know if you saw this, Mike, but she got so riled up she ended up ending the interview. I have to admit, she comes across as a very surly person generally. She's not a friendly character in any interview that I've seen her. She's quite aggressive and quite rude at times. Anyway, speaking of her being aggressive and rude, when the worst death toll in the whole of the world per capita was put to her again and again, presumably as Piers Morgan tends to, she responded by implying that it was basically people being older and more obese that was to blame. Now, do you think there's some kind of a point in there, or is that just outrageous? Like, oh no, we're not to blame. Just throwing blame wherever she can to avoid taking any accountability.
Look, I think if there's any basis to it, then it's almost fair enough to point out. In a way, I mean, be interesting to see.
But okay, hang on, Mike, hold on a second. Taking that point though, surely that would mean, so take that logic to its extreme. We've got the worst death toll per capita in the world. If a lot of that is down to the elderly and the obese, we should compare ourselves to other populations with similar amounts of elderly and obese people.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So Japan, I think Japan has much better COVID record than we do, and yet they have a much higher elderly population, for instance.
Italy, they're old.
Yeah, they've got an old population. I mean, okay, they haven't had the best result because they were hammered by the first wave, but it seems like they've got it a little bit more under control. But yeah, Italy would be a good comparison. Obesity, that's interesting. I'm not. Huh?
It's the Yanks, isn't it?
Yeah.
As far as I know, most European countries are much healthier than us in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
But the Yanks aren't. So I wonder how we line up.
Okay. No,
I don't know what the average age of their kind of population is like as well. How that compares to ours.
Oh, what, the Yanks?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I know. Obviously their legislators are much older than the general population. But yeah, it would be interesting to know that. I guess what we're saying is, as rude and aggressive as she is, and I mean that's really petulant, cutting an interview off because you didn't like being made to look a fool. But again, that's the kind of character she seems to be. But like you say, you can't just shrug off the fact that clearly a large elderly population and a significant obese section of the population can contribute. But again, that doesn't mean anything unless we compare ourselves with countries with similar levels of obesity and older people. So it'd be interesting to compare those, I guess. I thought we'd move on from that with some minor good news. So there has been good news. I don't know whether it's just because it's
Monday. I told you what the good news was.
All right, yeah.
Burnley and United.
United winning in the FA Cup was very good news. So well done, boys. Brilliant stuff.
Liverpool losing at home for the first time in like 4.5 years, 3.5 years, something like that.
Oh yeah, of course. I forgot that when you mentioned Burnley. Yeah, they ended their unbeaten run. That's a bit embarrassing, but we've been there. We've had those dire losses to Burnley as well. So
we have, but we're not talking about that right now.
Right? All right. No,
let's do something.
Mike, I meant in the wider scheme, things to be maybe slightly grateful for. I don't know whether this is because of the weekend and the lag in figures, but the death toll seems to have come down significantly, thankfully. So we were at times later last week, we were up to about 1,800 deaths a day. The last recorded day, I think, was just under 600 deaths. But again, is that because of the weekend lag? I don't know. But that was better. Hospital admissions, I think, were up, but infection rates were down, which is positive. So
that indicates that it's getting more severe. So that's a good. That supports the
does seem to support that hypothesis, yeah. But the scientists, the medical people, are making comments that they think the numbers are starting to stabilize, at least, which is the first step. They can't come down until they've at least stabilized. So let's keep our fingers crossed this is a plateau, and we'll soon see the infection rate start to gradually decline. Unfortunately, it's not going to plummet again for reasons that we've already said, because most of the population is still being forced to go to work. And another piece of good news, Mike, was, and obviously the government loved to blow this trumpet, vaccinations. Apparently, nearly 10% of the population have received at least one dose of vaccinations. That's not amazing news, but it's positive news.
Progress.
Yeah, at least we're getting somewhere.
Although, I'd like to know what percentage have had both now.
See, this is another thing. I didn't actually note this down, but this was another thing that cropped up end of last week and over the weekend. Is I think the medical community is demanding to see the evidence about keeping second doses like 12 weeks apart. I think they're really a little bit concerned about it, and they've said we'd be much more comfortable with minimizing it to 6 weeks. So
what was the reason it had to be 12?
Well, the logic was they wanted to give more people their first shot so they at least had some protection, didn't they? But then some members of the medical community said, oh, yes, that makes sense. It'd be better to have some coverage than none. But then other members of the medical community said, well, yes, but we've been told that there's no guarantee that the 90% efficacy will be retained if there's more than 3 weeks between the doses. So now you've got a 12-week period where I'm not sure a lot of the medical community agreed with it at all. And in fact, a lot of them are now saying, we need to rethink this. Can we shrink that down to 6 weeks? Because I don't know about you. I prefer to wait longer for my vaccine if it meant more people had like full coverage.
You'd rather have 10% of the people done properly than 20% half-assed. Surely, yeah. I get the whole some might be better than none thing, and maybe that's true. And maybe for the first kind of stage of the rollout, that's important to get something to those that are more vulnerable.
Yeah.
So that logic follows. But at the same time, if there is any doubt as to how long it should be, err on the side of caution. Don't give someone a dose, wait 12 weeks, and then it's fucked because actually you shouldn't wait more than 6, say, hypothetically, and then have to start all over again.
Well, that was my it was my thinking as well. It's like, why have the risk of them being partially covered and then 3 months later suddenly there's another outbreak because, oh shit, the efficacy wasn't enough and this new strain has broken through and people who have only had half doses are spreading it again.
Yeah.
Like you say, it's a weird choice because you say, oh yeah, that's a good choice, but it's like that would be a good choice if there was no time limit on the second dose, but we've been told that there is an effective time limit. So why fuck around with it? It's very frustrating.
It's not an easy job trying to vaccinate a whole country.
Not at all. No.
You know,
And can we just give, as if they needed any more, but let's just give another massive heads up to the NHS, because they're responsible for the rollout of most of this vaccine, not a private company, not Serco, not an outsourced company. Our fucking health service, the one we pay for, the one we support, the one we want to be retained the way it is, they're doing this. The people on the front line, they're getting this rolled out. So as much as we say, oh, the government's finally got something right, if it were up to them, they probably wouldn't have given it to the NHS. So fair play. The health service is really, really putting out the bag here. So well done, everyone.
yeah.
I didn't really have much else in terms of COVID this week, Mike. But I tell you what, I did have is, maybe not specifics, but Brexit's not looking good, is it? The reality of it coming out has not been good. We've had the fishermen's protest. We've had many stories of people who've ordered things online from the EU. Apparently, this does only, I should just say, disclaimer, this only applies if you're ordering expensive stuff from Europe. So anything, I think, over £200 in value or €200 in value. So if you order small value items from Europe, it should still be okay. But you order anything over that, you're whacked with customs fees, VAT fees. And in some cases, people are paying, for things they've paid £200 for, say, they're being hit with like about £100 of fees. So we're not talking about small charges. You could potentially be paying almost half the cost, or not, if not more, of the value of what you've just bought. And the worst thing about it is, again, it's the dishonesty. The government didn't warn about any of this. So these people have been ordering these things in good faith, and then suddenly they're being clobbered with these new fees. I've heard of companies apparently thinking about burning their stock because they just don't think they're going to be able to get it into Europe. It's not feasible anymore. I read today that MasterCard were raising fees for anyone doing EU to UK transfers or business by up to 400%. Project reality, isn't it? Unfortunately, the rest of us have to suffer with this thing that was inflicted on us. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. We can't do anything about it now. But anyone who is really affected by this, I'd suggest you write very angry letters to your MP and let them know exactly what you think of this deal and what you were promised would happen or wouldn't happen, which is happening to you.
And more importantly than that, tell us.
Yes, by all means, let us know about your misery, because your misery is our joy.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But
no, he's not.
What I meant to say was, a problem shared is a problem had. And we will by no means mock your problems, honestly.
We know what you meant.
We know what you meant. We know what we've done wrong.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know, but do let us know, like, if how it's affecting your business or you personally.
Mm-hmm.
Holler at us. Let us know.
Yeah, because this is 2021. There's so much shit going down. You can get lost in the morass of problems, but let us know, and it's good to have personal anecdotes to talk about. So let us know if anything's affected you personally, and we'll chew the fat over it. Don't expect too much research, because
that's not
what late night large is.
No. We chat shit, and that's it.
Baseless speculation is our game. And on that note, make sure you click that little subscribe button and the bell to let you know when we're next releasing a video. We try and do these things weekly. Anything to add, Mike, before we disappear into the good night to roll in the snow?
I won't be rolling, so, but yeah, that's that's it. Hit like if you like listening to our bullshit, and if you don't, hit like anyway. Don't be an arsehole. Subscribe and let us know. Let us know kind of what's been going on. What's been going on for you guys? If there's something you want us to kind of, like Aaron says, chew the fat over, or something that you think might be interesting to hear us thrash out, whether that's something personal to you or not, let us know.
Oh yeah, one more thing actually.
One more thing.
Just occurred to me. I don't know if I showed you these before, Mike, but check these puppies out.
Oh. Ah, merch.
Now look at it. These are the business. So look at this. You could have your very own late night large scrying glass. So to get one of these beauties, all you need to do, leave us a comment about something you might want us to talk about, and I guess send Mike your address. In fact, no, don't send Mike your address. Send Mike or give Mike a stamp addressed envelope large enough for one of these, and I will happily send one over to you. So remember that. And on that note, remember also we have our podcast on Spotify, so please do find that as well if you're bored, because you know there's not a lot to do right now, so why not listen to the stuff we have on our podcast? Because we talk about the here and now, but on our podcast we talk about various different themes that we come up with, and then we'll debate them, we'll educate each other, and you know it's a completely different vibe to what we do here.
And if there are, though, do let us know as well if there is anything. Obviously, lockdown large, so that predominantly is what we talk about, lockdown related things. Obviously, he likes to shoehorn Brexit in whenever he can. But if there is anything else that you want us to talk about, let us know, because you know there's always a chance that we can look at doing something at some point with that as well. So just let us know.
Of course. And until next time, stay safe, people, and we will grow you next week.